Oil prices are through the roof and so is inflation, but you already knew that. If you're a manufacturer or exporter or both, how do you deal with it? I'm Kalila Reynolds and it's time for another episode of Money Moves JA, brought to you in partnership with EXIM Bank's Business Advisory Service, giving you the tools to grow your business. We're welcoming back Senator the Honourable Aubyn Hill. He's the Minister of Industry, Investment and Commerce. So we're talking U.S. recession and its possible impact on various sectors of the Jamaican economy. Last week we spoke about impact on BPO sector. This week we're looking at manufacturers, especially exporters. And Minister Aubyn Hill is back with us this week. Minister, how might the U.S. recession impact our exporters?
A recession, especially from your biggest trading partner, when it's happening in the market of your biggest trading partner, is always going to affect you. Our hope is that it will affect us much less than others. The diaspora will continue, we hope, to buy the local products that they really can't get elsewhere. So those might continue to sell. Energy prices high. Not only do you have a recession, but you have higher energy prices as well, which will affect how we behave in the country. However, whatever happens, I am very convinced that we have to continue to make sure we find export markets. And my belief is driven by a few very simple numbers. We have 3 million people in Jamaica. Our per capita GDP is under 5,000 US dollars. Puerto Rico's is 30. We're at the bottom of 15, near the bottom of 15, almost at the bottom of 15 countries we look at in the Caribbean, even some very small ones. And when we're getting to the names, what is striking to me is that we have 3 million people. We have a GDP per capita of less than 5,000 US dollars for each person. Therefore, there is no way we are going to become a rich country selling to only 3 million relatively poor people. Mm-hmm. When you look at the per capita GDP of Israel, let's take Israel, 9.2 million people. Their per capita GDP is 42,000 or thereabouts. It's about the same as Canada. Canada has 38 or so million people. Israel is the 19th richest country in the world. But let's go even closer to our population level. 5.7 million people live in Singapore. Singapore has...
I smile because the politicians always bring up Singapore as the example.
But not this example. Singapore has a per capita GDP of 83,000 US dollars. That's about 17 times where we are. Now, our population is 3 million. Theirs is 5.7 million. Israel is 9.2. So I can tell you that Israel is not selling only to 9.2 million people. Mm-hmm. Singapore is not selling to only 5.7 million people. They're selling to the world.
Right.
But we in Jamaica have always seen it as great to be trading with ourselves. Some people get rich, but the country doesn't get rich. There are a number of reasons for that. For a long time, we've been a trading company, and the traders have invested in manufacturing. And I'm saying this publicly. Some have started, a lot more need to. So our local investors and traders must now begin to invest more in technology, more in modern manufacturing, get away from just making samples, and look at markets that we can meet, even in a pandemic, and let the country export, because if we don't export, even you in your business, when you grow to the size that you want to be, you want to make sure you can export to other territories and earn foreign exchange.
Right.
And I'm sure you're looking at that even now.
Absolutely.
Even now. So we need to make sure we're exporting even as we manufacture. Manufacturers have a tough problem because we have an energy issue. We in the government have to continuously look at that. I know the Prime Minister is seized by the issue. Minister Vaz is seized by the issue. Manufacturers tell me every day as the Minister of Industry, Investment and Commerce that we have to get the energy price down. And if we don't do it now when oil prices are where they are, we get back into lethargy when the prices fall again, and it's a real problem.
That's one of the biggest issues historically for Jamaican manufacturers, and even more exponentially so now because of where oil prices are. So there have been two particular hallmarks about this specific recession? The high oil prices, high energy prices in general, and high inflation. Both of these affect manufacturers and exporters.
Badly.
So how would you suggest manufacturers deal with one, the high oil prices, and then we look at inflation after?
The high oil prices, you know, I see something happening. 15 or so of the biggest businesses in Jamaica have set up their own energy producing activities, whether it's LNG or sometimes it's a combination of LNG and generation from engines. But I don't want that to happen to our country. We need the grid. So we're going to have to get energy on the grid at a much lower price that will encourage people to buy from the utility. So clearly, the Minister of Science, Energy and Technology is looking at this. That's his responsibility. But I get the issue every day because I am saying export, manufacture and export. They say, all right, well, what about my energy costs? So clearly we all in government, and this is discussed at the cabinet, all in government have to address that issue because even ordinary people, forget businesses who earn big revenues, even ordinary people are finding it hard to deal with their energy bills. Funny thing is, when the recession starts, people start use less oil, the prices come down, so that might happen. But we have to make longer strategic decisions. And I know the Prime Minister and Cabinet is considering those.
Well, that's some good news. And then secondly, now, how do manufacturers deal with inflation?
Sometimes when occasions like this happen, you have to swallow a bit of your margin. You have to stay in business. I tell you, for the World Free Zone Organization, I had the head of the World Free Zone Organization, Dr. Mohammed Al-Zaruni, who operates free zones in Dubai, very rich place. And he said, some of my tenants came to me the first year and said, we have no business, we can't do it. He said, we found a way to give them a long extension of no rent. They came back and they were going to close, and I said to myself, if they walk out, what am I going to do with the space anyway? I'm going to still have to have some maintenance, but if I keep them, I extend a certain amount of loyalty that they will not necessarily forget when things come back. And he said he kept them, and many of them are now back to where they can pay their rent. But considerations have to be made when you're in the manufacturing sector. How do you keep your business going? That's really when the test is on, and adjustments will have to be made.
Right. But when you're
in revenues.
Wealthy Saudi, you can afford to do that, no? Some of our small businesses are struggling month to month.
The idea, though, is the same whether you're small or big or rich. You have to find a way to keep your business going, and sometimes, regrettably, and I hope this happens to very few, if any, Jamaican businesses, you have to close for a bit. We hope that never happens because our economy is still growing. Jamaica has come out of this extremely well. We haven't borrowed and raised our debt like other people in our community, in our region. They have raised their debt completely. They've gone to the market. Jamaica hasn't borrowed. We still have been giving care packages to Jamaicans. I see Minister Clark looking to find more ways to find more money to help people who really need it at the toughest part of the economy. So Jamaica has been holding up. So I don't believe the worst will happen at this stage, but people have to begin to make adjustments to survive, and that sometimes means squeeze margins that take place for a while until you can recover.
Well, thank you so much for your input, Minister. We appreciate it.
Pleasure. Always good to be here.
Okay.
Here's a recap of Minister Hill's key points. Jamaica has to increase its exports for the country to become wealthy. To combat high oil prices, exporters need to set up energy-producing practices such as LNG or a combination of LNG and generation from engines. The government is working on getting energy on the grid at a much lower price to encourage manufacturers to buy from the utility service. Minister Hill said that regrettably, some manufacturers may need to go out of business for a while during a recession.
That's it for this episode of Money Moves JA, brought to you in partnership with EXIM Bank's Business Advisory Service, giving you the tools to grow your business. Visit their website at eximbankja.com. I'm Kalila Reynolds. Until next time.